Welcome back to the Pastor to Pioneer podcast. I'm here today with Nick Rowe from Bloomfield, Missouri, which none of our listeners likely are going to know where that's at, but it is south of St. Louis and a couple hours east of Springfield, Missouri. And for most of us, we still don't know where that's at, but you can look it up on a map. Am I in the ballpark, Nick?
You nailed it.
All right, right on. Nick is a former youth pastor, former worship pastor, former weekend experience pastor, et cetera, which he'll get into, and now has stepped away from the prevailing model of the church and is in real estate and has a group in his home. And so, Nick, we are really glad that you're with us, and thanks for being willing to share your story today, my man.
Can't wait. I think.
Yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
probably the safest answer you could give. I think I'm good with that. Well, it's cool. I'm so glad we connected a few weeks ago. Maybe it's been a few months ago now. And I just remember even after you shared your story, I'm like, oh, this is awesome what God's doing in your life and just your willingness to go wherever He's telling you to go. How did we connect?
We connected through a prevailing church person.
Okay.
The long story short would be someone at Elevation Church had a friend that built an app, and that guy reached out to me, or I talked to him previously, and he like re-brought up. Anyway, he said, "Hey, you need to meet Britton. He's got a cool name for a thing he's doing, and it sounds like what you're doing." So
That's right.
here we are.
It is. I always ask that because I never remember, and because a lot of people ask, like, "Well, how do people find out about Pastor to Pioneer?" I'm like, "Oh, it's like always someone who knows someone who's like, hey, you should just reach out. You should talk to Britton."
Yeah,
And so I figured that was the story somehow. But
Carson Sweet, that's his name.
that's right. That's right. Awesome, man. Well, Nick, let's start with your story as we often do here on the podcast, and I'd love for you just to share a little bit about how'd you come to know the Lord.
That's an interesting question. It was, I would say it's typical for most people, especially in Bloomfield, Missouri, the Bible Belt, part of the Bible Belt. Um, Raised in church, hear the stories, go to children's church, maybe even make it to middle school in church, say the sinner's prayer. But high school came, and that was still a good boy, still a good guy, but didn't know the Lord really. And then it was 2007. My actual date that I can put a stamp on is in 2007. I'm not an Indians fan, but I'm a Cardinals fan.
Ooh,
And they had a Casting Crowns Christian Day at one of the games. After the game, Casting Crowns sang, so we stayed for that. And the lead singer, I don't remember his name now, but they did a call to action, if you will, and salvation was the outcome of that for me. So it was at Busch Stadium, St. Louis, in summer of 2007.
come on.
That's how I came to know the Lord.
Well, I'll tell you, as a Cubs fan, I will definitely agree that Cardinals fans are incredibly lost and in need of
They are.
salvation. So praise God for His grace.
Uh,
That's awesome. So, all right, 2007, just heart captured by Jesus and the good news. What transpires after that? Like, does life change for you? How does the gospel change your life?
yeah, so it's at first I need to back up just a little bit. I knew my wife, my now wife, in 2007, but we started dating in 2007 in June of, and that's why I actually started going back to church was because of her. I meant to say that part, but didn't.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I started going to church, went to the Casting Crowns thing at Busch Stadium, and then started going to church. And my mom said, "Hey, you need to come check out this church we're going to." So I was like, "Okay." She said, "It's not. She said, it's really different, and it's simply a God church."
Okay.
We went to a Baptist church just to give some context there. I said, "Okay, we'll try it out." So me and my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, we tried it out. It was really neat. Wasn't over the top, if you will, but enough to capture my interest and want us to keep coming back, and we did. And I went there for 5 years. and that's where we started serving in the church, and eventually got on staff there. But yeah,
What was that process like of serving there and getting on staff?
so weirdly enough, I actually remember my pastor at the time, super good guy. He told me um, I didn't do anything in the church for 5 years. I just went. It was my Sunday routine. I left. Blah blah blah. I started serving in probably mid 2011. Numbers are all scattered in my brain right now. I'm trying my best, but in 2011, I started serving on the worship team because I could play guitar and piano a little bit,
Nice.
and so they needed someone to fill a role. So we did it, or I did it. And after a few months of that, he came to me and said, "I was waiting on you to serve. I've been wanting to ask you to be the youth pastor." Like he wanted me to make the movement of like getting involved in church. Didn't want to pressure me into it. Is
Okay.
basically what it came down
Okay.
to. But yeah,
Okay. So we asked you to be the youth pastor, which again, you're leading worship, and now he's saying, "Hey, actually, I want you to be a youth pastor." I'm curious, what was that like for you, and what was your wife like at the time? Thinking, was she thinking that's a great idea? Let's do this.
yeah. I honestly don't remember. I'm sure because she's still to this day, she's very encouraging. Anything that I want to try or do, she's basically like, "Do it, like go for it, try it, jump off the cliff." So I don't remember the exact conversation we had. I just remember that it was a no brainer when the question was asked. Like it was a yeah, for sure I'm doing this because I need to be more involved. And yeah,
Okay, so you started working at the church, doing youth ministry. What was that like? What transpired?
horrible. my I I don't know how long I studied for my first message that I gave. It felt like an eternity, and the message was like 6 minutes long. And it was over. It was about basketball and dribbling and the devil attacking you like a dog. I don't remember what it was about, but it was horrible and it was ingrained in my mind and it's never going away and I wish it would. But it yeah, even the previous youth leader that was there, let me say this. They had a youth leader. It was all volunteer based except for the senior pastor at this church and I was the first hire outside of that. So whenever this volunteer youth leader was helping me, and I gave my first message, he was he laughed at me basically. Like that's like this guy. They hired this guy to do what I've been doing for 3 or 4 years and do effectively. Um, yeah, it was embarrassing. I forgot that story till you just asked. Like I forgot that existed, but
Well, obviously
yeah,
didn't traumatize you to quit. You stuck with it.
no,
What did the next couple years look like in ministry in the church?
it was growing. The next couple of years looked like me taking a work for myself mindset and bringing it to the church. Again, wasn't raised in church in my adult years or teenage years, so I didn't really know the church ins and outs and lingos and things that some people may that went to like seminary or was involved in the circle of people that um, did church their whole life or whatever. But I just knew that where it was isn't where it needed to stay. And I'm speaking strictly on growth and aesthetics and the experience when you go. That's just where my mind went whenever I took over. It wasn't about. I'm not saying it wasn't about leading kids to the Lord and who Jesus is and all those things, but a really big chunk of my mind was ate up with how does it need to look, taste, smell when we walk into this room? What can we do to attract more kids? So I don't remember the question you just asked. I just know that it was definitely more on the experience side of things rather than the spiritual side of things.
So that's your mindset. Well, that was part of your mindset of like, hey, we just got to make this more
Yep.
attractive, better environment, better experience. More kids will
Yes.
come, and then they can get impacted.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, you're doing youth pastoring for a few years. How did you transition into worship pastor and then even the experienced pastor.
So I mentioned earlier that I served on the worship team before I was asked to be the youth pastor, and progression just rolled through 2006 from 2012 to 2016. Youth pastor, youth pastor, youth pastor, youth pastor. Still serving on the worship team the whole time on Sunday mornings, and I don't on the management side of things. I don't know why it was transitioned to me or I was asked. I can't remember that, but I was just approached about becoming from rotating out of youth ministry into um, music. And I'm no musician by any means. I can chord on the guitar, I can chord on piano. I'm not tone deaf, but I'm not a good singer, if that makes any sense at all. But I was just willing, and I always went above and beyond, and I always did the extra things and put in the hours, and um, which comes straight from, I'll quote it again, but like the business mind instead of just the getting, just going through the motions. But yeah, so that was 2016. I went into music. And then it was around 2019. I did that for 3 years. I built the team, grew the team, and I started doing the Sunday morning experience things as the worship leader to help with our worship set. So the lights started going lower. We painted the back wall black. I actually don't think we got that painted while I was there, but that was one of the things on my list. Like, we got to paint the back wall black. I got the projector bigger. Oh, I'm whoever's watching this, I'm just preaching to the, like, you guys know all these things for the what Sunday mornings have to have. All of those things. That's what I was fighting for the entire time I was in music. And so around the 2019 mark, I built the team up, the worship team, the music team, and it was its own little entity that didn't require me to be there. Just that's just where it was. And so they said, "Hey, why don't you just focus on Sunday mornings instead of, or focus on the entire Sunday morning instead of just the music?" So I transferred to that role in 2019-ish. Again, my dates aren't.
No, that's good. So
I literally think COVID, like, just with that happening, it's just hard to remember exact dates for me.
I'm with you. I
Uh,
think for all of us, it
yeah,
just that in
it just
some
ran
senses that
together.
yeah, it did, right? Like it's 4 years
Yeah.
into one is what it feels like sometimes. So a couple questions for coming out of that for you is
Okay.
I'm curious how big of a church are we talking here? Obviously, it's got to be fairly large if they've got a Sunday morning experience pastor.
Yeah. Um, rural Missouri, town of 1,800. We probably averaged kids church everything 350 to 400 at our peak in 2018-19.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I would say that's
Okay.
fairly
Yeah, so mid-sized church. That
very
makes sense.
close. Yeah.
And you referred to a few times in your story along the way of like the experience and like having more of a business mindset. Where did
Hmm.
that come from for you? Where did that business mind come in?
I honestly, I don't know. It's just it just I've always thought, like, looking back at my life after I've dove into I graduated college in 11, never had a real job, always worked for myself. And just looking back, it's like all my parents, all my grandparents, both sides of the family, zero entrepreneurs in our family. Everybody was a school teacher, or my dad was the closest at it. He was a pharmaceutical rep, but he still worked for GSK. Uh, so I don't know where it came from. I think it's just in my blood,
Makes sense.
like just my blood, not any of my family's
Yeah, that's
blood.
funny.
And yeah, um, but I had this autobiography in eighth grade, and I wrote that I wanted to be an architect in it. And I didn't become an architect, and it was because of the math I had to do. And I looked into it, and I think my little eighth grade mind was like, that's too much math. So I didn't do that. But I am in real estate. And in 2007, graduated high school in six, my mom said she wanted to flip a house. Maybe it's my mom gave me the blood, but she said she always wanted to try it. And I was like, I do too. So let's give it a shot. And we did it. We flipped a couple together. And then from then on, it was kind of just me rolling with the punches throughout from 2007, 8 until now in real estate. But that's my first love.
Well,
Um,
we'll come back to that too about the real estate
okay,
stuff, what
sure.
that looks like now. But I do think it's interesting. You're doing the real estate stuff over here on the side while you're working at the church, right? They're going
Uh,
parallel the whole time.
yeah, I got one more too. I
Yeah.
also, in 2012, the same year, I'm sorry, 2011, the year before I became on staff at church, I also bought a fitness center in a town neighboring us. I was graduated college in May of 11, driving through the summer. I don't know if a lot of people would know this, but in 2011, and I only know it because it happened to me, but in summer of 11, I was putting out resume after resume so I was going to be a PE teacher. Resume after resume after resume of Missouri schools trying to become a teacher. And I had zero callbacks. Like, this isn't good because I think at that time it was budget cuts in the school and they were hiring within and really, leaning their or slimming up their workforce for money reasons and zero callbacks. And I was driving through the neighboring town to us, and on this old rundown fitness center, they had big window chalk. It said for sale, $37,000. It's exactly what it said on the whole entire window. And I was like, that's interesting. I have a PE background. I don't really like working out, but that sounds fun. Like to run a gym or fix it up or do whatever we have to do to make it work. So I talked to my mom, and she said, just go for it. You're 22, 21 years old. If you fail, you'll be 25 years old. Oh, well, like you're good. So, like, let's go for it. And also had a girlfriend. Don't want to ignore her. We're just super young, so still leaning on mom a little more than my 20-year-old girlfriend at the time or whatever it is. So she said, just go for it. Went to the bank. They said, write the check. So we did it. And so it was growing that gym from 26 members to 1,492 members from
Oh my
2012
gosh.
to 19,
Wait.
serving at the church,
Give me those numbers again.
26 active members to 1,492 when I sold it in 2019.
Nick.
You asked about the business mindset. I don't know where it came from, but it's just like a natural thing for me, I
Bro,
guess. I don't know.
bro, I'm gonna find some gyms around here in Michigan.
I sold because I am burnt out on the fitness industry. I've lost like 70 pounds since then. I used to weigh 281 pounds until I sold the gym. Then I lost it all. But every time I would talk to people about owning a gym when I was big, I'd always see like a funny look, like you don't look like a gym owner. I would always follow up with running a gym and using a gym are two different things. It's not the same thing. You don't have to partake in the thing you're doing to be successful at it.
Wow,
Just
man. No, that makes so much sense on why then that mindset for you is part of the church of like, hey, wait, it's like a business. I'm
yeah,
running successful businesses here. Let's make this more efficient, more attractive, get more members, if you will. Uh, we'll get to your transition out of the prevailing model church in a minute here, but I do find that guys like you who have some business stuff on the side, it makes it for a heck of a lot easier transition because the biggest question a lot of us are asking when we step away is, well,
money.
that's our paycheck. How are we going to pay the bills? And for you, I'd imagine that probably wasn't quite the same because you're like, oh, I'll flip more houses. I'll do more
Yeah.
businesses. And I do think, again, not everyone's wired that way, and that's not bad. But for guys
No,
like you that
it's
have that
not.
wiring, it's like, oh, well, fine. I'll just pivot. Not a
Yeah.
problem.
Well, I got paid $1,000 a month from the church. That was my paycheck. It wasn't a full-time gig. It was I mean, I did the math one time. It at my peak of working, I was like 650 an hour back in 2016 or 17 with all the hours I invested in the church, youth trips, like all the things. It was nothing that year. And I'm not saying $1,000 a month isn't anything. Don't take me wrong, because that was still in our minds, me and my wife's, about me stepping down from the church
Okay.
altogether. It was like, okay, so there's our house payment that's going away now. Like that's what we looked at it as.
Yeah. Wow.
And so what you said is true, but it's not all true, because that thought was still there
Still,
of, yeah, it's like we're gonna have to pivot, give up some things until we reevaluate and refocus on or refigure out what we're gonna do to replace that thousand.
I think that is interesting and really helpful to hear though, because I think for a lot of our listeners that are contemplating, okay, if I step away, even for you who had a couple businesses going, even though you were paid pennies, it feels like from the church,
Yeah,
it still was something, and it
it
still
was.
caused you to go, it's a barrier that you had to overcome.
Yep, it
And
really was. It was. I I will say this also that it never was going to stop me from quitting, but we definitely had the conversations at dinner more than a month's worth of nights of what do we do when.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, let's jump back into your story where you're now the Sunday morning experience pastor. What what starts transpiring in your heart and your mind to go from that to going, we got to be done?
Yeah, that's a big question right there. I need you to ask it again, actually.
Okay, so you're cranking away, right? You're cranking away as
Yeah.
the worship pastor. Then you move on to the worship experience or Sunday morning experience pastor. What started happening between then and when you made the decision of I think we're done here. I think we're done not just at this church. I think we're done with the institution.
Yeah, that actually starts with, and you're probably going to have to remind me of that question as I go, because I'm definitely more than likely going to ramble here. But it didn't start as we need to be done with the institution, the legacy church, the prevailing church, because no church background beyond like children's church. Like I said, I have no. My group of friends wasn't in the church world. I didn't go to seminary to learn these things. It was just I took the business mind into the church world because I was serving at the church and got asked to. So that's the context to your question for me.
Makes sense.
Um, but so it wasn't like this church is doing it wrong or whatever. In the context of discipleship is what is the punchline to everything, and what is lacking in most churches. It came down to me is like I mentioned a while ago. They're not painting the back wall black. They're not doing this thing that I say we need. They're not doing this thing that I say we need. And it was just barrier after barrier after barrier. And I start doing the math. That's I think probably why I did the math. Oh, I get paid $6.50 an hour this month. Is this even worth the struggle to try to continue it? Um, but yeah, again, dates run together, but somewhere 15, 6, no, it was post youth pastor. So it's late 16, 17, 18 when I was the music leader that I started like getting uneasy and frustrated with these things. Like not just frustrated because pastor told me no, but like it really started to eat at my mind and it started to get down. And I didn't even know that. I just looking back, it's what I realized was happening. Um, so got told no, and then frustration set in, bitterness started setting in, and then I got asked to be the experienced pastor. And me and my friends in our world now we call them lollipops. So in the prevailing church model, a lot of times you get lollipops to make you feel better for a little bit. Like, fine, go do that project. Here's your budget, but don't talk to me anymore about other stuff. So got lollipops, and it pacified me for a long time. And then right before COVID hit, oh, hold on. What was your question again? I told you I would do this.
No, just you're getting at it of like what was causing the discontentment in you.
Yeah,
Discontent was growing. What was that?
yeah. So it was just the overall leading up to what I just said, and I don't know. Yeah, to answer your question, it was just little things over the course of 3 years that that led to that. That led to my heartache. We'll call it.
So, but obviously, when you decided to step away, what were you stepping into? What you decided to at first? What did you leave the whole church, or did you just step away from your role?
Okay, it's a good question. I just left my role at first, thinking I just wanted the responsibility off my shoulders, and like that would ease my mind. Um, and I tried it and I did it, but all of my group of friends, um, now I had them all at my church, like my circle of friends. So I was like, well, if I step away from this thing, I know that churches, just from seeing it everywhere, if you don't go there, it's not that you're not friends, but you don't hang out. And like that's my family there. So I had to when I stepped away, I tried to start serving again a little bit after a little break, and it just wasn't jiving. I still had this bitterness and this frustration. It kept getting worse and worse and worse. And Yeah, I don't know. It's a whole cluster of things that just led to more bitterness and more bitterness. And I didn't even know it was actually church hurt at the time,
Oh,
and I
wow.
didn't know like any of the things on how to solve this. I thought it was maybe just me being too I don't want to use the word business minded too much in this podcast, but like that's what I keep coming back to. Like maybe it was just me. Like, okay, I'm not the leader. This isn't my thing. I'm not the CEO. I can't make those decisions, and I can't deal with not being able to do what I want to do. So I just need to chill and just calm down, step out of my role, and just let things progress as they may, and help where necessary. That was the first step that I took to try to get over whatever I was going through. And it turns out that that didn't work. So um, I continued to go for a little bit. I went to end up having to go to some counseling sessions, not really knowing anything. I just didn't know why this was happening. My wife's an all-star. It was never like, oh, we're getting divorced because it was such a bad home life. Like she's an absolute stud. So that wasn't a scare, but it was like I was not being the husband that I needed to be.
Mm,
Um, I wrote this in a Facebook post too, but like I was horrible to my friends,
hmm.
just to know, and and I wasn't the dad that I needed to be for my kids, just because I just I wasn't there. I wasn't there mentally. I was just living in frustration and bitterness because of what I just experienced the last 2 or 3 years, which I can't even put my finger on what it was. It was just the overall model, the overall way things progressed within the prevailing church.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like how, you're in the midst of it, you don't realize how maybe it's impacting you and the bitterness that's building up in you. But those around you sounds like they could see it. Maybe they didn't know it was bitterness, but they knew something was
Yeah.
off because,
Oh, they knew it was bitterness.
okay, they did. They did.
Yeah. It
Okay.
wasn't a.
It
I
wasn't,
don't wear my heart on my sleeve too bad, I don't think, but
that
I
was an
wore
easy
that on
one
my
to
sleeve.
spot.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was wearing tank top. Yeah, for
So
sure.
how how did you deal with that bitterness then? I mean, I'm thinking practically. So you started going to a counselor, but like, what was it that helped you deal with that bitterness? Because I think that is a temptation for a lot of us that have left the prevailing model of the church. A lot of us come out with some church hurt, some pain, and some bitterness can build. So I'm really curious, practically, how did you work through that bitterness?
Well, um, I I didn't. I'll just say this too. And I'm going to back up all the way through this whole thing. So I've said this a couple times now that I wasn't the seminary school guy. I was just the business guy who went to church. And so I didn't lean on the Lord the way that I should have. Not even probably, for sure. And it's still one of those things like I'm working on that because I just when I was in church, it was about building the church. It was about building the numbers for me. And I can talk the talk of, numbers are people and people matter to God and all the quotes and things that you can say to justify your thinking, but it just comes down to I just was leaning on myself and my own knowledge from experiences in my professional life, and I didn't lean on the Lord. So I'll just start with that.
Okay.
It might not have got that bad if I would have leaned on the Lord throughout this process and did what and sought after His goals and His direction for me instead of what I thought was the next move to make within the prevailing church that in that context. So it actually, so I had one. I said I went to counseling. I had one counseling session, and I went in, and it was actually a friend of mine about an hour away. He had a counseling center at the time, and I texted him one day and was like, "Dude, I just need counseling." And he's a believer. I said, "I need to go to counseling. I don't know how this works. I've never done it. I kind of feel like a loser for even asking you about it, but like I need counseling." And he's like, "Well, I can't do it because we're friends, but I have this girl who works for me. She's awesome. You go see her." And I went there 5 seconds in, I started bawling, like sitting down with her in our session. And I bawled for 35 minutes, snotting, and just, I said probably 7 words because I just couldn't talk. And anyway, after that, I, like things changed for me. I don't know what it was with that one counseling session that lasted 35 or 45 minutes. But it's a Christian based counseling session. We didn't pray, but like she just gave some lot of wisdom thrown my way, and nothing specific that I hadn't heard before. Maybe it was just the right place, right time, right emotions for me at that point. And yeah, I don't know. It's getting all worked up thinking about it again. To be honest with you, I
So
feel
you
like we're
just
about
went.
to have a counseling session here.
No, it's right. So you went one time, and that
Yeah, it
just
was one time.
something broke open.
Yeah, yeah. What? Nothing. Not everything was completely fixed, but like I had a whole new light of like I just need to lean on the Lord, and this isn't a me thing anymore. Like this isn't a, and that's whenever actually it was post my counseling session that I realized that I wasn't the father I needed to be. I wasn't the husband I needed to be.
Wow.
I was horrible to my friends. She didn't say those things, but like all of that just kind of came to light when I realized it was me and not like it was me, not my pastor. It was me,
Wow.
not the other church leaders. It was all me for sure because I look at it as I didn't have to put myself in those situations, and I'm not saying that the way the prevailing church is ran sometimes that it doesn't like suck you into that.
Yeah.
But I'm still a grown man. Like I still took full respons. I still take full responsibility for that, for the way I became mentally, the way where I got to mentally.
Wow.
Um, I just take that responsibility.
That's incredible, Nick. So you had this revelation about all these things. What did you do with this new revelation?
Well, more revelation came as time went on,
Okay.
and this might sound mean, but I'm 6'1", I weighed 281 pounds, and I wasn't, not the biggest person in the world, but I definitely wasn't healthy. It, and me owning a gym, like I knew all the stuff. I have a sports background. I have a PE degree, so I took kinesiology, sports. Like I took all of these classes. I know the world. Um, but it came to it. The light. How can I say this? When the light was revealed, it was personal responsibility that I wasn't the friend, husband, father. I wasn't being that I needed to, and I was not taking care of myself. So I can go into a little bit of science. I'm not going to on depression and anxiety and all those things, and I'm not saying they're not real because they're very much real. But it was 100% on me to get out of where I was, and I I told my wife when this happened. And this is the all star wife part, but I was like, I have to focus on me for like 6 months. I have to go on this journey, whatever that looks like, whether it's working out or doing these things. I'm not leaving the house. I'll still be here in the mornings and night and still function as a dad and a husband. But like I've got to focus on me. And so I took all of this mental state and all of this hurt and everything, and I just put it into health and wellness.
Hmm.
Um, and for 6 months. That's what I did, and until noon every single day. And I know some people probably can't do that, and that's understandable. And so it's a little easier for me to say, "Oh, Nick, yeah, I'll stay till noon in the gym." But like I'd get up in the morning to prepare my day, and then I would go to the gym and I would start working on a house around 11 to 1 o'clock, and then I'd work till 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. But yeah, I took all of the anger and the bitterness and all of the things, and I turned it into just bettering myself on the molecular level, basically.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. That's wild. And so was that going on roughly the same time you stepped away from the church, or what was that
Yeah,
process
this was
like?
probably. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say, what was that process like of then going, okay, this is not just the role, this is on me, and this is we need to step away from the prevailing model entirely. What came to that? What led you to that conclusion?
So that's that's sort of the same thing. Before, when we were talking, or today, just a little earlier, I had said that I didn't know the whole prevailing church model thing. I said something along the lines of I didn't know that that was the thing I was supposed to be aspiring for because all these church people tried to do this blueprint. I
Yeah.
said something like that. I don't remember what it was, but I just knew something was off.
Okay.
That's all I knew. I didn't
Okay.
know what it was. I didn't know the ins and outs of the lingo. That's where I was going a while ago. But I just knew something was different. And Corey Asbury, I'll throw that name out there first. So some people, most hopefully you guys have heard of him, but he's the Reckless Love guy. Wrote the song Reckless Love. Bunch of other bangers too. He's my favorite artist overall. But we went to a concert of his in a neighboring town, whatever year it was, 2021, I don't know, 2022. And towards the end or middle of his concert, he had this song that he wrote called Pioneer,
Mm.
and it's on his album now because this is a couple years ago. But at the time, it was just a song. It was not an album. It was just a song, and the song Pioneer talks about well, letting go of the treadmill life, like just I don't know how to explain it honestly. You just need to listen to the song. That's what I'll tell you. Just go listen to the song Pioneer by
It's a good
Corey
song.
Asbury. Yeah, it's an amazing song. The lyrics are good storyteller. Anyway, so my whole group of friends went to this concert, and whenever he played Pioneer, every single one of us that were there were ugly crying at the end of his song. Like not saying a word to each other, but we just knew like what he just said was the thing that we were feeling and didn't know how to. I'll say me. I mean, it's everybody too, but I'm just putting this is my story. So um, everything we had been thinking or not knowing, like why do we feel this way?
Hmm.
It was that song explained it 100%.
Hmm.
Um, that it's anyway that so the work now he has the song Pioneer,
Okay.
and we named our ministry. You're pastor to Pioneer. Our ministry is called Pioneer Movement. So, which is actually why Carson kind of hooked us up there because he pastored to Pioneer and Pioneer Movement.
Like, hey, no
But
brainer here, Nick. No
yeah,
brainer. Yeah.
you guys are doing the same thing with different names. So check them out. But yeah,
So you guys, when you went to the concert and you were wrecked by the Holy Spirit, were you all were still at the church, involved in the church at that time?
yeah, I was still at the church, but I wasn't involved. And this is 21 or 22. I stepped
Okay.
away right before COVID. Um, and I honestly just kept going back because my friends were there. Like after a certain point, it's like I just want to. I don't.
Don't want to
It
lose them.
might be a little FOMO, like fear of missing out,
Yeah.
also, because I've done it for a decade of my life. But yeah, so we're, um, dude. I'm sorry, I forgot the question again.
No, I was just curious. So obviously, you guys are still at the church, and then you go to this concert. You get blown up by the Spirit,
hmm
and you're like, this is what our heart's cry has been. This is finally giving language to how we're feeling. Well, what did you do with that? Like, how did you go from there to saying we're stepping into this pioneer movement and actually doing it?
Yeah, we okay. So that when we left, we all talked. Like that's the thing we're talking about. Like this is the thing we've been trying to describe. We put it our whole tenure at the church. We were always like, we are here for a reason together. There's a bunch of my hometown Bloomfield graduates here, and it makes no sense why our church is growing and why we jive so well together. So we knew the Lord had puzzle pieces like laying out, and this is our analogy we always said. Like we just have to put those pieces together and find the couple we're missing. And after that concert, it's like that we have the puzzle here, but the puzzle pieces aren't in this prevailing church we're in. That the puzzle pieces are this other thing, and I think that's why the Lord gave me discontentment. I don't know. I'm not saying He gave me discontentment. That sounded horrible, but like
No,
He
we've
let me
we've
go
had it.
through
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like He let me go through that for this reason because now I have a story because the prevailing church is so big, especially in the Bible Belt. And it's like that's just not the thing. And it goes back to the word I used a while ago, and everybody knows it, but it's discipleship, and like that's the missing puzzle piece. And so when we figured that out, we over the course of 2, 3 months, weeks, I don't remember, this person stepped down from the prevailing church. This person stepped down in my circle. And then eventually we're all out of the prevailing church. And we're like, what do we do now? We're always like, church to us is building this thing. Pastor speaks, you invite your friends to it. And that's not what we do anymore. So we started meeting in our home. And again, didn't know the home church model thing existed either. Or don't want to call it a model, but it kind of is a little bit. But so we just started having church in our house. Like, what the heck do we talk about? We're not preachers. I was a youth pastor like 10 years ago now, or 8. I don't preach, as you can tell from my rambling and loss of thought all the time, but it's the truth. But so we just started going through the book of John, started in John 1:1. It's like, you know what? I think there's a preaching style that's like what we want to do here. I've actually forgot the word, and now that what's the word? Like, you preach, you go through. Like you
exegetical.
That's it. And so, like, let's just do that. Let's just study the Bible. Like, what else can we do? So we went from stepping down to meeting in our living room and just studying the Bible together until the Lord just kept laying revelation on us over until he did it. We didn't know at the time what he was going to do. Still don't really, but yeah, I don't know. It's been a wild trip.
So you've been meeting in homes now for a year?
Year and a half or so. I think January 2024 was our first official, like, we are in home. Like, we said, this is what we're doing. And that was January of last year.
Okay.
But it was off and on late 22 through 23 or so. We didn't really know what to do. We were just kind of like walking around, not with like chickens with their heads cut off. Like, are we sinning right now? I don't know. It feels like we're
question
sinning.
I think a lot of us ask is like, is this okay?
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is such a. It's a handcuff to your mind, is what it is. It is crazy, the pullback that I would call a conviction, but it's not. It's brainwash, honestly. The pullback that has on you, and it's not even like it's the pastor's fault or someone's fault. Just like what we've been doing for so long might not have been the thing to do. But yeah, it's definitely handcuffs, and that's what it feels like.
Wow, great analogy. How did people in the church respond to when all of you guys stepped away?
I've had about 4 people reach out. That's it.
Wow.
And that's the story. I haven't
Wow.
talked about pastor. I've talked to him a couple of times, like seen him at basketball games, or we have a huge Christmas tournament at our gym, seats like 3,200 people
Oh my
in a
gosh.
town of 18. Yeah, it's just this old school. We're a Civil War town, county seat, and just happened to have this huge, cool gym. And anyway, I saw him and we hugged each other, but we haven't really talked since then. I'll call her my spiritual mama at the church I was at. She talks to me all the time. She's awesome. But it's really just everybody's cordial in public, but it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
for your time, bro.
Yeah. Oh.
That's what
Was
it
that
feels like.
hurtful?
But
Was that hurtful for
it
you? Of like you'd
it
invested your life in this place for so long and then no one really
it's
seems to
not
care
even
anymore?
really hurtful, honestly. Like, I don't know if hurtful's the right word, and I don't know if I have the right word to describe it. But as soon as we left, I left. I'm going to go from my perspective. My friends can talk for themselves. But as soon as I left, it's like all of the things that I wanted to do in the prevailing church, guess what got done about a month after I stepped down? Back wall painted black. Guess what happened? Blah, blah, blah. This happened. And then, like, interesting. So I was as Stephen Webb, who was the Elevation employee that I met Carson through to get to you. He called it what do you call it? I can't remember now, but the ship that goes before the oil tanker, like you break the icebreaker. That's
Yeah,
it.
I
Yeah,
spent.
he's
Yeah,
like, you're the
yeah.
icebreaker. Like, someone's got to do the job, and they don't get credit for it. But if you don't do that, the oil can't get through where it needs to go. So like, that made me feel a lot better. It's like, someone's, and it's not that I wanted credit, but it's like I just fought so daggum hard for this stuff, and it didn't happen. Which I don't care now. I don't care what they do. But for the following year and a half, 2 years even, probably, like it didn't hurt, but it's like, why? Like, why now? Like this, I might not be feeling this way if you would have done this 2 years ago,
Right, right.
but it had to happen.
So you now have been over a year meeting in homes, trying to
Hmm.
figure it out as you go, like a lot of us, just trying to figure it out as we go.
Yep.
What are some of the ways that you've seen you guys meeting in a home every week have impact on your group, on your family, on you?
Yeah. So overall, it's like night and day difference. I'll use the handcuff analogy again. It's like handcuffs taken off, thrown away, and like um, there's no in the secular world, like just in the normal everyday living life, business, whatever, there's no better feeling than being out of the prevailing church model into it. It happens to be my living room, and we may rotate in the future, who knows, but into my living room every Sunday morning. We open the windows up, winter or not, because we're cooking and letting the smoke out, and it's kind of hot with people in there. But open the windows up. The birds are chirping. We had the just worship music playing on the TV. People start rolling in about 10 o'clock, and sausage is done, ready for everybody. Brings their own food thing, like they prepared at my house, and it's dude, it's the best. It's absolutely. I look forward to it every. It's a year and a half. I still look forward to it every week.
Come
We just
on.
had it yesterday. I'm ready for Sunday,
Come on.
and we just do it Sunday because that's you can do it whenever, but that's the everybody's no one does anything Sunday mornings. That's when everybody
Exactly.
plans to do church. So that's why we do it then. That's the only reason we do it then.
No, it makes sense.
But yeah, it's no, it's the absolute best. And I know we let me tell a quick story. I don't want
Please.
to like run over time or
No,
whatever,
no,
but
you're good. You're good.
okay, we had a we coming out of the prevailing church a year later, we had another church, we'll call it a competition in town, if you will, one of our competitors. We they had after we were out. I was just a joke, but everybody compete. Churches compete. I don't care what anybody says.
It's true.
Don't geofence around your neighboring church. But there was a neighboring church in town here, and they got started to get a new pastor, and we started to go to their church a little bit. Like we church hopped. I don't think I mentioned that. We church hopped for a little bit, not to find a church, but just we didn't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that was part of what we did. But he uh, he came to town, and we met with him before he was actually hired as like this big group of people, willing to come maybe help grow your church. We almost fell back into the trap, is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting at. But um, we may need to take this part out too. I don't know, but what was I going to say? Dad gummit.
No, you're just saying you met
I
with this
was
pastor they're going to bring in about potentially you guys joining what
Yeah,
they're
so
doing
one
there.
of my talking about being free and how we feel on Sundays. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the one of my best friends, Kyle, he made this comment when we met with this pastor. He's like, I'm not doing worship again because Kyle and his wife Haley are studs on the platform. And he's like, I'm not doing worship every Sunday again. He's like, and it actually makes me want to puke thinking about it. Like that's so that's the mindset. That was my whole point of that whole neighboring church thing. That didn't even matter. But it's the mindset of like it makes me want to puke thinking about going back, the obligation of every stinking week having to do this. And if you I had a worship because I had a worship leader tell me about a month ago when it snowed 2 months ago that when they got the call Sunday morning that church was canceled, they were relieved
Wow.
because like just the overwhelming obligation and burden to make sure you bring a good set list and um, um, perfection or whatever to the stage. It's like if you feel that way whenever you get a call that it's a snow day, like you're seventh grader watching the news scroll at the bottom waiting for your school to be closed, like that's an issue, like that's a real problem. And so we don't going back to us right now, we don't feel that way. I don't feel that way, dude. I'm loving
Awesome.
it. Like
Awesome.
we cook the sausage, the eggs, the gravy, the fruit, like every single morning. It's good. If you're watching this, I recommend it.
So maybe this is a question I should start asking all the podcast guests is do you miss it? Do you miss the prevailing model?
Zero. Don't miss it at all. I did it first. I actually got invited to a pastor's retreat in Cancun.
Oh,
And I think I went. This was after I stepped down from the church. And I love the guys that asked me, and they're still like, I still look up to them. Like just super dudes. And one of their pastors at their church, that's how I know them. He's from a neighboring town of mine also. He moved off and went to their church. But they invited me for Pioneer Movement. We didn't know what it looked like yet. We knew the name of our ministry. And like he was thinking like maybe we could get him to church plant, you know, um, under their it wasn't Baptist, but it was like a non-denominational denomination. I don't know what it was called. It doesn't even matter what it was called, but it was an organization with non-denominational churches underneath it, and like they were going to write us a check to do this thing, and we went to Cancun. And I only say that to say this: the last day, all the senior pastors met by themselves, and everybody else met in a circle. And my friend from the neighboring town, he was stepping out of his role to do something outside of the church, the prevailing church. But it wasn't because of like pastor to pioneer. It was just seasons were changing. So after they talked in this circle, everybody got to go around and give him a word of encouragement or whatever they wanted. And I told him what I mentioned earlier is like, you're going to feel like you're sinning whenever you stop working in the church. You will feel like that. That's a real thing. At least it was for me. And, like it's not. And because we were past that ourselves, like, oh, this is definitely not sinning. This is
it's
amazing.
glorious.
But yeah. But yeah, whatever.
That's so wild. It's so funny. I do ask that of a lot of people stepping away, and a lot of us go through that same tug that you're feeling before of like, is this sin or not? And uh, but everyone that I know that has made this transition has gotten to that journey of like, yeah, this is freedom. This is
It is.
totally freedom. I can't imagine going back to what was. It's just so it's not to your point, it's night and day. Why would I choose the other
Yeah.
thing?
As the wise Kyle Berger would say, makes me want to puke.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote him on that. You can just let him
Do
know.
it. He'll
Yes.
love it.
So my last question, I think it's going to be my last question for you. We'll see, but how has this change impacted you and your kids? You have 3 kids, right?
Two.
Two kids. Okay.
Yep.
How has this impacted you, your wife and your kids?
Um, my wife, she is an all-star. She is not a pushover, so I don't want it to come across that way. But she's down to clown with whatever like I want to do, and she's totally in. If she if she's going into a gas station and she says, "Do you want something to drink?" and I say no, and she comes back out and I said, "Man, we should have got a red Gatorade." She's like, "No, I asked you if you wanted something." Like I'm not whatever. So that's how she is. So she's not a pushover, but she is totally down with whatever. But in all seriousness, she loves it too. I mean, it's a no brainer. Our whole entire family, my kids, they were too young. They're 5 and 7, so they would have been
Okay.
like 5 and 6. I'm sorry. One just had her birthday last week.
Oh, awesome.
But they were too young to really know the difference. They were 3 and 4, 5, somewhere in there. So we drive by our old church, and sometimes they bring it up, sometimes they don't. Like that was the church we used to go to. Uh, because one was a month old and the other one was 2 years old or 3. Yeah, in 2020. Yeah, born in 2018 and 2020. Yeah, so that's right.
Okay.
But yeah, they don't know any different, but they love what we do. They are Barbie fanatics, 2 girls. I hope that the Barbie fanatics uh, revealed that, but they're 2 girls and they don't like their doll houses being touched, so they don't like that part of it
Where all
because
the
they're
other
very
kids come over to
particular, like
play.
playing. Yes. So, but they make do and they have all their friends over every week, and it's just the time. But they do enjoy it. They haven't realized um, they're not going to grow up in a world where they know what the prevailing children's church looks like. It's
Yeah.
just not a thing. Actually, I say that I'll say this real quick. One of the guys in our group, Luke, he brought up a great point one time too. Not a great point, but he said something. one of his biggest holdbacks at first was like, because his dad raised him in church, and like his grandpa been married 70 years as a preacher, like just down in his family. He's come from a Christian background for sure, and he was raised in the prevailing church. And one of his things was like, I just don't know if I want my kids not experiencing that. And then one day it clicked. He's like, why does it matter? Why is that the thing they have to know? So he had a 180 on that. But to answer your
Wow.
question, my family loved it.
I love it.
Like it's just so simple, and just so there's just no obligation. I mean, it's just, and I'm not saying like beyond that with outreach and discipleship, there's not more to do, and we do have more that we do and are like starting to learn to do. But when it comes to going to church, what is that? Like,
Yes.
what is it?
What is that?
Yeah.
So you briefly mentioned that of, even earlier saying there's a gap in discipleship in the prevailing model for you. Have you found that what you're doing now bridges that gap and you're seeing discipleship?
We're working on it.
Yeah.
I'll go back to that. I'm not good. I was we went through discipleship training since, and all of the stuff was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's common sense, like on how to disciple people and approach people in your story or MPL training and some other things that you can do. But it's like it never that never was a thing for me because I didn't know. Like discipleship to me was invite them and let the preacher talk. Like
That's right.
that was discipleship. And come to know that's not discipleship. That's just laziness. But the it's true. That's exactly what it is. Like it's your responsibility to go and tell the world, not your pastor's. It's his responsibility too, but it's also yours. But yeah, the I don't know.
That's so
It's
good.
yeah, it is what it is.
Well, man, I really appreciate you being on the podcast today and sharing your story. Was there anything, just give you another minute or two, is there anything else in your heart you feel like you want to encourage our listeners with?
So I've listened to your podcast, not all of them, but 10 of them at least, plus 10 plus. And I do you ask this question a lot, so I actually prepared something, but I've already used it a few times
Okay.
this since we've been talking. But I'm going to say it again.
Okay.
You feel like you're sinning when you step away from the church. You are not sinning. The prevailing church, I should say, not the church. You are not sinning. It is a real feeling, but it is a fake worry. It is not a real thing to worry about. Your salvation is not on the salvation side, but salvation is in your hands, not your pastor's. Your role at the church is not your salvation. Obligation to the church, no. You don't have to have obligation. It should be a want. If you think snow days are a day off, like that's a horrible thing to think about. Horrible way to think about missing the prevailing church. If you're thinking about leaving the prevailing church, just try it. I
So
promise you.
good.
If you're thinking about stepping away from the role in your church, because and I'm saying this not just to do it, but like if you're overwhelmed and
Yeah.
like it's taken away from your family life, just freaking stop. Just walk away. Like it's okay. I promise you. All of us on this podcast, I don't know if Britain was this way, I can't remember, but everybody I've listened to, it's kind of a struggle for us to do so. But the guys on this side, like, just do it, man. Just do it.
That sounds like a great place. I'll clip that. Just
Do it.
post that everywhere. I think it's a great
Clip it.
summary. Yeah. It was just a great summary of not only your story, but I think of so many of our stories on this journey from pastor to pioneer, man. Well, I look forward to hopefully we can nail down a date where Justin Roper and I could come hang out with you and your
Let's
crew
go.
and just spend some time and encourage one another. And
I
uh,
haven't turned down a golf trip on those dates.
oh, geez, look at this. See,
I'm kidding.
we're gonna
I'm
figure
just
we're
kidding.
gonna figure this
I'm
thing
not
out.
kidding, but it,
Yeah,
it, it
no.
fell through anyway, so it doesn't
Okay,
matter.
okay. I'll say we're gonna figure this out and get a date so we can hang out in person.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk about sometime too, not right now, but the like once we learn more, and I think it would be cool to get some people together to talk about like, don't shoot me, church model for the simple gatherings, like some ideas and tips and tricks and things that can help people kind of stay organized within this unorganized mess.
Yeah,
It's that would be really helpful and be fun to talk about too.
love it.
Brainstorm.
I love it. Well, Nick, it's been a gift, man. Thanks for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
It's been fun. Sorry for the rambles and loss of thought, but here we are. We made it to
Hey,
an hour.
it's made it fun. I love it.
Yep, cool.
I know I told you 45 minutes. I say that so that it always
I
ends
know,
up
but
an hour.
I
Yeah,
know, but they're all about that. I've been watching the time kind of click up there, and I knew there wasn't a time limit, but it's fine. I'm
I love
cool.
it, man. Well, thanks for being on, buddy.
Yep.